Okay. Hi guys. Welcome to the practical DDMRP. I'm so happy to be here at OCA Days. I would like to thank to all the organizers and give a special thanks to Paulo that accepted the invitation to be my partner at this presentation, sharing his expertise and knowledge with the Demand Driven. Let me introduce myself. I'm Luis Felipe Miléo, CEO of Camilla, a Brazilian consulting company, specialized in Odoo implementations since 2012. My journey with the DDMRP began some years ago when I worked on the Odoo implementation that use a lot of the concepts from the theory of constraints. And now I'm currently working on a Odoo project that will use the DDMRP, and I will show more details about it in the end. And Paulo, now it's up to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Louis. I'm Paulo de Freitas. Hi, everybody. I am the Brazilian representative of the Demand Driven Institute for Education in Brazil, also representing APIX and other institutes focused on supply chain management education. Okay, let's move on, Louis, next slide. Great. Let me start by introducing the benefits before we talk about concepts. Okay, most people, okay, would get some satisfactory results out of getting one KPI like service level or inventory reduction to get good results out of one or the other. But in this case, we've had many implementations which you people can look up. If you look up the site of Demand Driven Institute, there's a lot of case studies open to the public, and you're going to see that the implementations that have been done, they all achieve simultaneous results of increasing service level, reducing lead time, and reducing inventory. You can see the overall results are quite good, like you get service level increases from 13 to 54%, reductions in lead time from 22 to 85, and reductions in inventory from 31 and 60, all obtained simultaneously. And in our case, you can look up your industry, and then in our case in Brazil, we've had one major case study. ArcelorMittal in the steel industry is world famous, biggest company in the steel industry in the world, and they obtained after implementation of the techniques, and at the bottom of this column you can look, it's 235,000 buffers. That's a lot of buffers distributed over 73 distribution centers and 2 hubs. And they obtained 17% reduction in lost sales, and they obtained a 19% reduction in inventory reduction. So you can imagine how many millions that represents in savings, the size of the company and the size of the project. All right, let's move on, Louis. So after showing you that people are getting good results, let me just give you a brief 10-minute explanation of the concept. All right, why are we going to have to adopt a new methodology? Well, we live in a modern world where most of the tools that we use have been actually designed for a different world. Okay, today things are moving fast. For example, in a modern world, we've got lower and lower accuracy of sales forecasts, and the future trend shows that we're going to have to trust the sales forecasts less and less. The supply chains are getting more complex. Okay, they're no longer linear supply chains. They look like spider webs. They are really long supply chains and complex. The product life cycle is getting shorter every time. Okay, more and more complexity introduced into each product, and more customization. And there's also higher pressure for lean inventories these days. So this makes, okay, a need for a rethinking, a redesign of the tools that we've been using, such as MRP. And the new approach would be to focus on the relevant information in real time, using the concept of product and information flow in an integrated manner. I will show you that we can bring more profitability and more return on investment. Quoting out of a book that was published by the 2 thought leaders, Carol Tucker and Chad Smith, the 2 thought leaders of this new methodology, the book is called the Demand Driven Adaptive Enterprise, Surviving, Adapting, and Thriving in a VUCA world. Okay, I don't know if you know this expression, the VUCA world, but this involves a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, as I've just described. But the quote is fabulous. It says, when a company focuses on flow performance, it is followed by better cost performance. The opposite, however, does not apply. So think about it. We are all pursuing the cost. Supply chain has been seen as cost driven, and very rarely it is seen as profit driven. Okay, so let's have a look. Next one. Why and what is relevant information? Well, today's companies are often drowning in oceans of data with little relevant information, very high stocks of irrelevant products. We call this curve the bimodal distribution. So we have too much stock of what is not selling and too little stock of what is selling. And this is what we call a bimodal distribution. And it goes very quickly from one stage to the other. For example, if you have to invade your safety stock in a traditional replenishment methodology, it goes from having no stock to having excess stock from one day to the other. And the idea is to migrate towards a mature DDMRP, where most of the stock will be concentrated over the green and the yellow regions, which is where the stock should fluctuate, and avoid the outliers. That's where the two arrows are showing you that we need to be less on those dangerous zones of having too little stock and too much stock. So through flow and focus on relevant information, demand-driven attacks two very harmful characteristics of the supply chain: the bullwhip effect and the bimodal distribution. So I've shown you, okay, about the bimodal distribution. Next slide, Louis. I'm going to show you now a little bit about the bullwhip effect. First of all, the methodology is actually made up of 5 steps. And I'm going to show you a little bit about number 1 and also talk about the reduction in the bullwhip effect. The number 1 is called positioning, okay, your buffers correctly in your supply chain. So it is strategic, as it says there, strategic inventory positioning. You don't put your stock everywhere. You must really justify, and we have a 2-day course that covers this methodology. And if you're interested, you can look it up in the DGI site, in my site, EPCS. And this 2-day course explains all the 5 steps in details. But just in a short time that we have, I'm going to tell you that we have to justify each position that you add stock as a buffer. You have to justify in financial terms. It has to bring in more savings than more expenses. This is obvious. For example, you've got a critical subcomponent, as it is shown at the bottom of the slide, and you decide that would be a good candidate for you to put your buffer, all right? Okay, now what this does, as you can see, is that it acts as a firewall, and the signals that come from the suppliers, as you can see, on the left-hand side, and from the demand on the right-hand side. That's a high variability signal, okay? And all those delays and all those wrong informations about forecast and market values and so on, and all this can be sort of blocked by a buffer at the critical component side and a buffer at the finished product side. And you may even have a buffer in the middle if it is justifiable. And that is all you have to calculate it, and it's all based on having a better return on investment. We just don't put stock everywhere, otherwise you end up having more stock. So this technique lowers your stock, because if you have a stock in a buffer in a subcomponent, then your finished product stock can be lower, can be much lower, okay? The second step over there is to establish the buffer profile. Louis is going to show you a practical example of setting up a buffer profile. So there's a few rules for you to know, but then this is the sizing of those 3 regions, the green, the yellow, and the red zone. Okay, then you go on to step number 3, which is dynamic adjustments in any company, any methodology, be it MRP, classical MRP, be it just-in-time, anything you want to approach. You really need to look after your seasonality. If you have a strong seasonal behavior for a product, or if you have a phase in and a phase out of a product, all those things need dynamic adjustments and the intervention of a planner. And then you see that we call those two steps the protecting steps. That's protecting the flow. Okay, so the buffer is there to protect the flow. And then the fourth and the fifth stage is the pull. That's where you have your operational work and demand-driven planning gets into action. And there the buffer serves another function, which is the buffer that generates the resupply order. So if also this is something that's going to be visible in a demonstration that Louis will do. So it is the buffer, it is the responsibility of the buffer to generate the next purchase order and the quantity, and this is also dynamic. So, and the last step, number 5, you're going to get visible and collaboration, and this is a step that is sometimes difficult to measure in financial terms, the gain of this, but I've seen a lot of testimonials from supply chain managers that have implemented the methodology that say this is one of the greatest benefits that they get because it is simple for the planners, for the buyers, for everybody in the company to adopt this technique. It's very visual, very simple, very straightforward. All right. So next slide, Will. And this comes to the last slide I want to show you. So it was a very brief presentation just to tell you that your mindset in your company has to be totally different. It will affect your entire supply chain. Your company needs to accept the fundamental principle to move away from cost centered and focus on cost, and to move into a company that is ready to face the future. And the future of the world points out that companies will survive if they change to becoming more flexible factories, to becoming more flow conscious factories. All right. So that's the fundamental principle. Those that will survive in the future will be the ones that make this move. The fundamental planning changes in this methodology is obvious. We do away with this short-term forecast. We don't need forecasts for the short term, only for the medium long term. Okay, but we substitute them with sales orders. The decoupling point is also something important there because I've explained to you this is where you position your buffer. And then in the middle, in the yellow label there, we have innovation, plenty of innovation. Lead time brings innovation, buffer status brings innovation, and the net flow equation, which triggers the order, also has a lot of new elements. There's a lot of innovation as part of this methodology. So it has evolved from previous technologies like MRP and Lean and Six Sigma and theory of constraints, puts them all together and presents it in a nice, easy to understand methodology. And then the green part over there shows the bottom line benefits without trade-offs. This is the same as the first slide. You get all the benefits without compensations, without you having to exchange. It's so much easier to say, let's give eye service to the market if I put lots of stock. Now, if I say to you, lower your stock and still improve your service, that's a challenge. And this is what this methodology has been proven to do, and that improves the return on investment. All right, Rena, it's up to you now, Louis. You have to give them a real-life demonstration now, okay?
Hi, Paulo. Thank you. Guys, I will show a little about the DDMRP and Odoo. And the DDMRP are a set of modules maintained at OCA umbrella. They are developed by ForgeFlow and other contributors. ForgeFlow's Odoo-based software was declared full compliant by the Demand Driven Institute this year. And in this talk, I'm using these three modules that you can have on GitHub. Okay, and I will explain all about the DDMRP in 30 minutes. It's almost impossible, but on the slide, I want to summarize some of the DDMRP inputs and outputs. Try to pay attention in the arrows in the next slides, and if you want to know more about the technique, use this slide as a starting point, and please follow the links above. And in the Odoo, we have the buffer profile. We have these three most important inputs. That the first one is the buffer profile. that you have to say that is a purchase, the manufactured part or distributed part, and a measure about its lead time, and a measure about its variability. And the second one is the lead time. In this case, is the supplier lead time of 7 days, and in this case too, we have a fixer average daily use of 10 units. That's give us the first output, that is the buffer. It's divided in 3 zones. The yellow zone is the heart of the inventory, the stock required to cover a full lead time. And the second one is the green zone. It's the heart of the supply order, setting the average order frequency and their size. And the last one is the red zone, the safety in the buffer. It's if a part has a high variability, the red zone will be large. And we have here this continuous line that's called the net flow position. This is the heart of the order recommendation. It's calculated by equation, and depending on the level, we'll create a procurement recommendation for you. For example, every time that hits the yellow, it generates a procurement recommendation to the top of the green. Here we have the list view of the buffers that we have some more important outputs. The first one that I want to explain, it's these two visual and planning priorities. It's a 3-color percentile. On the left here, we have the net flow position that, in few words, show the need to procure, produce, distribute this in the near future, and its priority. And the on hand here, it's how much the on hand goes inside the safety zone. And you have here in the right the procurement recommendation that you must run to create a new purchase or a new manufacturer order or distribute it. Here we're gonna go to Odoo to see how the things goes, and follow this example. Okay. I'm here at Odoo. I have these buffers here. If I go to the buffer of the project OCA, we're gonna have a lot of more information. We have the supply and the demand, the open supplies. We have some charts here, and some more information that you must know in the future. Okay. Today I have one schedule receipt that I will process, and okay, it's done. I will run the DDMRP again. It's a cron, and if we come back here, we're gonna see that the on hand of this project has increased, and you see that you have this project to you have a lot of this project in hand, and you can you do your daily operations. And if I go to the delivery orders, we have 2 here about this the product OCAB and OCA. I will validate both, one of 10 units, and the other one, it's about 60. If we run the DDMRP again, we're gonna see some very nice information. We're gonna see that the on hand is decreased again, and we have the procurement recommendation of these items that has changed, and we can go here, select the products, and run the request for procurement. When we do that, the systems gonna create the purchase orders of these products, and for the purchase operator, we have a nice view here that he can see the open orders, and he have the on-hand status too. And he can make the decision to what's the purchase that I must do now in the beginning of my day, for example. And this is the one. He confirmed the order, and if I go to the next one, confirm the order too. Okay, and come back to the run the DDMRP, and we're gonna see that the buffers are recalculated again, and we have a new situation, new priorities here. The same is applied to the manufacturer. When, in this example, we have two manufacturing orders with the same planning date, but we know that the first one that we need to produce is this one that have the lowest on hand. Here's the moves that I made, and the chance, okay, and now I'm gonna show you a little about another model that we're using to validate the DDMRP simulation. It's a very way to you to start your implementation. And I'm currently working on a project in Brazil that we are implementing DDMRP, and we develop a simulation model that allows us to check what's the best buffer parameter and get some metrics and see that the methodology is working well in the customer. We can use Excel in the input or a remote procedure call. Then you have some metrics that I will show to you. Coming back here to Odoo, we go to inventory, reporting, DDMRP simulation. Let me show one here. We have many items here with some data of on hand and demand in many days of the year, and we get the global results here about the average of these items. And if we want, we can go to the item itself and see what's going on with the simulation. We have here a simulated reduce of the average on hand of 6%, and we have an increase of the service level of 1.3. And in this graphic here, we can see the black line is the stock that the customers had in the black line is the stock that the customer had in the past, and the blue line is the stock that's on hand that it will have if he's using the DMRP technique. And this is our references, and this is it. We are open for questions.
Thank you very much, Luis and Paulo. Very clear presentation. So if there are questions, feel free to post them in the chat or unmute and ask it.
Hello.
Hello?
May I have some question, please? Luis, could you please explore on the buffer and the ADU, I think? Because the heart is as I understand, the heart is in the buffer and the ADU, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. The hertz is in the buffer and in the ADU. We have in the example. I have used the. Let me share my screen again. I have used the. Oh, I have used the fixed ADU, but in the simulation, when we have data of the past, and we use a moving average ADU. But you can, if you have a prediction system, we can use a blended ADU too, to use some of the past and some of the future.
Is it calculated automatically or we must provide the number?
Yeah, it's calculated automatically. Every day, the systems and the technique is not the system. It's a directive for the technique that you must recalculate the ADU every day or every period that you understand that's better for the company. We have here in this buffer the IDU set it to 14 days in the past. Okay.
So
Any more questions?
that 14 days we provide to the Odoo, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's we can run here the ADU calculation. Okay. Every day.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? I don't see other questions in the chat nor on Discord. So if there are no other questions, then a big thank you, Luis and Paolo. And the next talk will be in 5 minutes or so with Rafael Valli, who is going to present his Generate DS tool to generate bindings from any XML schema for Odoo.
Okay, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.